I started off many, many years ago in my teens. I'm 58 now, as a semi-professional footballer and tennis player. I won one singles title. I never was going to be professional and fantastic at tennis because I'm only 5'10". And I was a high carb believer then. And I did a bodybuilding tournament when I was 23. So I had great muscles and abs. It was all natural, by the way. And again, that was high carb. And I can remember thinking this is the way to eat because it's how everyone should be eating, skimmed milk and porridge oats and fruits and freshly squeezed orange juice, trimming off the fat, avoiding red meat. So I did all those things. And so did my parents. But sadly, both of those died when I was very young. My mum was one of those that had cereal for breakfast and skim milk and did everything that you're supposed to do. And at 53, she had colon cancer. So I didn't question the food then. I just thought that was bad luck or genetics. And obviously I worried a little bit because, genetics is pushed at the moment. Actually, it's a bit of a hot topic. Anyway, I continued down that path. And then obviously as I got older, I wasn't doing the soccer or football, depending on what part of the country you're in or world you're in, I should say. And I noticed that even though I wasn't drinking and I wasn't smoking and I was eating really healthily, my health actually wasn't good. So once I stopped being competitive in sport, I trained to be a personal trainer because I'm really interested in health, really loved the gym. So in my 30s, started doing that. And then I did an advanced certificate. I was lucky enough to train an Olympic javelin thrower and really got quite good and trained some people in running. And I started to notice my health deteriorating even more. So I experimented with things like 6 months on soy-based stuff. That was no good. And then I got into my phys and I was a middle distance runner and doing pretty well and coaching people for running. I took a very fat, overweight person in their 50s and made them in the top 20% of the world marathon runners. So I was pretty happy with that. And I was very frustrated because I could train people and I knew what should be doing, but I wasn't getting the results that I get now, by the way, as a carnivore coach. So then I got into my 40s and I started to want to branch out into more specialist fields. So I got a qualification as a specialist practitioner in obesity and diabetes. And it was the diabetes qualification that made me start to really question what I'd learned all my life or been told all my life, because in the classes, constantly talking about the medications, it was always in relation to carbohydrates. And I was the guy in the class that would put his hand up and say, surely we should just reduce the carbohydrates. If they're that bad for people, we should do that rather than just increase medications. Now, looking back, that is such an obvious statement, but at that time, that was laughed out of the room. So was fasting. Oh, you've got to eat 6 times a day, otherwise you're going to collapse, and the advocates for the blood glucose monitors for diabetics were shouted down. The doctors didn't want blood glucose monitors in the patient's hands. And at that time, I can remember that the mantra was they must eat first thing in the morning, these diabetics, because their blood sugar would be really low. Of course, now we know that isn't true. And in fact, the dawn phenomena, the early morning high blood glucose is actually the issue. So that's another matter. Anyway, so I started to question things, and then I've branched out as well because I wanted to do phlebotomy. I wanted to be the coach that could do everything, that could train people in exercise, help them to lose weight, help them to reverse their diabetes, and also if they needed blood tests, I could draw blood and hook up with a lab and all that sort of stuff. That's another thing I did. So I got into being a qualified phlebotomist. So that's been very handy. Also did a Bachelor of Science honours degree in physiology and health sciences. So I was getting really qualified, but I was finding that what was actually happening in real life to me made no sense because I was following the rules. I was getting tubbier. I was running 3 times a week. I was doing at least 10 miles 3 times a week. And I was eating healthily, not smoking, not drinking. And before you know it, I was having a colonoscopy because I had lower left quadrant pain. I was overweight and I was pre-diabetic because one of the things I did when I got my phlebotomy qualification was make sure I did a full panel on me. And those numbers were shocking, absolutely shocking. I also then went and had a coronary artery calcium scan and told the radiologist, I think this is going to be really bad. I've started to learn how bad carbohydrates are for me. And they looked me up and down and said, oh, I know, you got a bit, you look all right, you'll be all right. And of course, the score was 639. Not the worst. Yeah, seeing your face there, that's pretty bad. Not the worst I've heard, by the way. I've heard of thousands, and I've had one much bigger than that as well. Not me personally, but with clients. And I just realized I'd been lied to all my life about nutrition. Absolutely lied to. So I started to research myself, low carb for me, not for my clients. And of course, if you looked at every metric, my weight plummet in a good way. My muscle mass started to go up. My body fat started to go down. All the things that allegedly you can't do at the same time, which is gain muscle and lose fat. But of course, you can do that if you're eating the right things. So come 50, I decided to go low carb, and the results for me were so phenomenal. I started to talk to clients about low carb, and that was pretty good. And then, of course, I did the thing that everyone else does. Well, if lowering carbs is really good, what if I lowered them even more? And I started to be interested in the ketogenic diet. I've got myself a keto mojo so I could measure my glucose and my ketones. I'm smiling now because these days are behind me now. But it's interesting when you first get into it to see the truth of what happens to your body when you eat certain things, or when you eat other things that you've been told have been bad for you. So I was pretty hooked on that because, again, the results just improved. And then on my 55th birthday, I decided to do a 30-day challenge. At this point, I was trained to be a carnivore coach and a fasting coach with Sean Baker at, it was then called Meat RX. Totally convinced that this was the right thing to do. And I was holding, obviously this is before the restrictions, we were holding meetings once a month with groups of 10 people, and absolutely everybody was losing weight. Everybody's body composition was going fine. There's a real vast range of ages, 77. We had people in their 30s, in their 40s. So it wasn't just a particular group. Some were exercising, some weren't. But to a person, they all improved. And this happened every single month. So I was totally convinced. And then I did this 30-day challenge for Carnivore. I could not believe how much better I got again. Really couldn't believe it. And I'm not pre-diabetic. I'm not allergic to any foods, which I used to be. I used to be allergic to shellfish and all fish, even the smell of fish. I was hospitalized twice eating fish, and that's not the case anymore. My hearing has improved. I wear hearing aids. I've got an app on my phone, which in the last 3 years, I've had to turn the volume down less and less and less as that has cleared up. Little things like the, athlete's foot, which I'd had since I was about 18 till about 50, did everything that you're supposed to do. Powders in your socks, powders in your shoes, acid, duct tape, all the things that you're supposed to do, really cleaning your feet and drying them and all that. Didn't get rid of athlete's foot. Just eating carnivore, totally gone. It's totally gone. Used to have a rash come out if I was tired or stressed. Looked like someone got a strawberry and put it against my forehead. That's stopped. I can't remember the last time I had that. So skin's got better. Muscle mass. Did an experiment last year where I really went for a different type of training. I've been in the gym, like I say, since I was 14, actually. And here I am in my 50s, late 50s, and I gained 9 pounds of muscle. And on the phlebotomy side of things, my testosterone from going keto to carnivore in 3 months went up 30%, completely natural. So I was really convinced, obviously, because it was really working for me. And only today, I spoke to a coaching client who was absolutely so surprised that in the first 8 days, they've lost 10 pounds. And I said, yeah, a lot of that's water weight, but don't worry, you will slow down, but you will keep losing weight if you keep doing this. But, weight in a good way, the body composition will be better. And I actually told him the story. I said, when I was a personal trainer and I was high carb, I would have celebrated 10 pounds like you would not believe. I would have thought that was amazing. I said, but since I've been doing this, and I'm now well over 500 clients in, I think I've got about 100 success stories on video now. It ranges from 150 pounds, 122 pounds, 112 pounds, 80 pounds, 56, real serious numbers when it comes to weight. But the bigger thing is about the medication. So obviously the diabetic side of things, people getting off their diabetic medications is incredible, which I didn't get when I was doing high carb at all. Never got that. Coming off like metformin, obviously with their doctor's approval, because their numbers just get better and better. Their daily blood glucose monitor really shows them what's going on. If they're lucky enough to have fasting insulin and C-peptide and all that, they can look at their insulin levels as well. Many people in America and Canada, New Zealand and Australia and Germany, I have clients all over the world, and some of the labs are just fantastic. They will do all these tests, not so much in the UK, sadly. C-peptide is really difficult to get in the UK, but it's a good proxy for insulin. So right across the board, as a phlebotomist, I see improvements. As a personal trainer, I see improvements. As a nutrition expert, I see improvements. So whichever hat I'm wearing, everything resolves. And it's crazy.